Hello everyone, my name is Dimitar. Thank you for sticking around for this afternoon panel. As I mentioned, this Life as a Trainee panel is essentially to give you a great insight into what Life as a Trainee is and for future trainees to work yourself locally. And something that we do want to get across, and I think we've kind of gone across right today, is that no matter what your background is, you kind of have a real shot of becoming a lawyer. And before we properly get started, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. Charlie, can I start with you?
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Charlie. I am currently studying LLM legal practice S2 at the University of Law. I did my undergrad in computer science, and then I completed the PGDL last year. The summer before I completed the PGDL, I did a vacation scheme at Ferguson and converted that into a training contract offer, and I start next September.
Thank you. And Cheryl?
Hi everyone. My name is Cheryl. I'm currently a first seat trainee at Cooley. I'm seated in litigation. I graduated from Oxford. I did law in 2023. I also did the Cooley vacation scheme in 2023 where I converted that to a training contract. So very busy year for me. But yeah, that's been helping.
Thank you. And Karl?
Hi everyone. My name is Karl. I am a first seat trainee at RPC. I did my vacation scheme at RPC in 2023. That to the training contract, and now this comics for my first year.
Thank you. And Justin?
Hi, I'm Justin. I'm a third seat trainee at Stephenson Harwood. I studied law at Durham University, graduated in 2023, and did my VAT scheme in 2023.
Thank you. And Lucy?
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy. I'm a second year trainee at James Day. I graduated Newcastle in law in 2022. And then did my back scheme at James Day while doing my LPC, and then converted that training contract and started last September.
Cool. Thank you. And Sze-Von?
Hi everyone, I'm Sze-Von. I'm a second year trainee at Bristows. I studied English at university, and then I did a project management career before converting to law.
Okay, thank you. And then let's just jump straight into what the Life of a Trainee is. Really like. Starting with Karl, what surprised you most about your first week in training?
On my first week, is induction, which is really nice. I think RPC does a good job of introducing us to life of training, getting us used to the tech, used to the operational side of it first. When we got into our seats, so the first seat is a little bit different than others because, like I said, I'm on seat on it. So what really surprised me is when I joined my secondment team, they got me right into the work. There was maybe a day or two lead up, and then they got me involved with matters right away, which I thought was really nice because you feel pretty integrated pretty quickly.
Perfect, thank you. And Sze-Von, what is it that trainees do exactly at a law firm?
It's a massive mix depending on the seat that you're in, so the department you're in. But typical tasks include drafting various letters, correspondence, contracts, summarizing advice to clients, a lot of advisory work as well. Bundling for a litigation seat, so that's collating a bunch of documents for filing. And also various other housekeeping. So sometimes we'll do little presentations to keep up with current legal updates. And also networking events as well. So it's a massive variety depending on every.
Thank you. And building up on that, Cheryl, can you tell me about your sort of day as a trainee, how it's structured, and who are the people you work with and the teams?
So basically, every day might invite some different sort of variation. I'm currently in litigation, so I think day to day it's still a bit predictable in terms of what you're doing, since the cases that we're on have been going on for a while. You're kind of aware of court deadlines months in advance at a time. So there's always in the back of your mind a general structure as to what this week will be looking like. However, there's always ad hoc tasks to deal with. In general though, I'd say most of the work that I would get is not just directly from my supervisor, but just across the department, depends on business need. Anyone in the department who would require any sort of work on a given day, sometimes I'll be tasked onto a new matter on the day as well. So I generally work alongside anyone in the department, but day to day, I would say there's a good mixture of drafting work. Sometimes there are client calls that I'll be sitting into that I'll be taking notes for. And also, in general, administrative work that is necessary for case management, such as making sure that the team's on top of court deadlines, making sure that our correspondences are filed correctly so that they're easy to look for, and generally supporting the team on anything else that I can help with.
Thanks, Cheryl. Lucy, is your day structured in a similar way? Yeah, who do you work with?
So I tend to say it's a bit different where we don't have a seated system. We have a non-rotational training track where basically in a seated system, as everyone knows, where you get sort of put in seats in 6 or 3 months. But at Jones Day, when you arrive on the first day, you're in offices with other trainees and you're just given the freedom to walk the floors and go and speak to whoever you want in the firm, partners, associates, secondary trainees, anyone to get work. And that means that my day is not necessarily structured with a supervisor. It means that I could be working on a litigation matter and a corporate deal and a finance matter all at the same time. So it really does I know it's a cliche, but every day is really different. Yeah, and the people I normally how the team is structured you normally work most closely with the associate on the team. Depending on how big the deal is, the team can be just you as a trainee, an associate and a partner. But also I've worked in teams where there's been 4 associates, 2 trainees, sort of 2 partners, and then you also have all the specialist practices coming in to help you with different parts of the deal as well, such as unemployment and competition. So all the partners are really good at inviting you to all meetings and really getting that exposure. So even though you do work very closely with associates, you still kind of have that contact with the partners as well, which is nice.
Great, thank you. And following on from our law firm, there's a business partner panel this morning on the junior side, and sticking with you, Lucy. Can you tell me how trainees fit into the firm's business and how involved you are with business development yourself?
Yes, we literally from day one, we were always told to get, even as a trainee, you can get really involved in business development. We were given business development training and sort of skills you can bring into your everyday work life and just general life that will then help you build those business development skills. One of the partners said to us, when they hire trainees, they're hiring you as a future partner and they want you to develop those skills early rather than just when you get to the part of your career as a partner. And they're really, really, they say any ideas of super welcome as trainees, which makes you feel really involved in the law firm as a business rather than just the work we're doing on an everyday basis. And I think if law firms did every year they take in new trainees, they'd be really missing a trick if they didn't take that enthusiasm and different perspectives that come in and people with different backgrounds and everything. So I think don't be afraid just because you're a first year trainee or second year trainee to have your ideas, tell any ideas for business development. Partners and associates all live there, so yeah, it's really nice to be involved with it. Really good start.
And Justin, as someone who was at university very recently, how do you describe the transition from university to working in a law firm? Is it a massive shift?
I'd say so, yeah. I remember the first week during that induction week, like Karl talked about, I was very much just, well, what am I doing here? I think this is quite a big shift to what I'm used to at uni. Given because I've never really done any office jobs before, so it's a lot of working out how things work in the office. And I know this sounds quite probably simple, but just knowing who the right people to ask questions about something of a stupid question, you wouldn't probably go to a partner and ask whether you filed this file. They've got a bigger fish to fry there. But yeah, it's just a lot of learning different styles, working styles, and sort of knowing where you can lean on, where the help is. And also another thing I found quite interesting looking back is the sort of idea of feedback. Because at uni or just at school growing up, you always just be doing exams or tests or essays and you get a mark out of it. But when you get into work, you don't really necessarily know whether you're doing a good job or not. And what I mean by that is just not everyone is very good at giving you feedback. You shouldn't be expecting that whatever email you draft or whatever document you draft, someone's going to be like, oh, very well done, or actually, you can improve on that. Sometimes what I've learned is no news is usually good news. If you don't follow up, nothing comes back. You send it out, it goes on. That probably means, okay, I've done quite a good job. You can give yourself a pat on the back. But yeah, that's what I've learned.
Great advice. And on that topic, Charlie, as a future trainee yourself, how are you preparing for the transition into life as a trainee, and what are you most excited about, and what do you think the biggest challenge will be?
Yeah, so kind of practically speaking, I'm obviously taking the SQE, so that's kind of prepping me for the knowledge side of it. But I think just keeping up to date with kind of the things that are going to affect my firm the most. Like, we're pretty strong in certain like areas, especially tech and IP, and so just keeping up to date on matters so that when I go in on day one, whatever seat I'm in, I kind of hit the ground running and know. Kind of I'm aware of what's going on in the industry and what kind of is going on, and also I'm trying to maintain those relationships that I built on the vacation scheme so that when I go in, I already know the people that I'm working with. And then I'm just really excited to be working on like real cases, because for so long you learn about like all these fake cases and then past cases and stuff, and I know they're just trying to test you, but I'm actually really excited to work on things that are real instead of the things they've made up. And yeah, I think the biggest challenge is just going to be learning to navigate a corporate world. I think that's something that a lot of people haven't been in before. And even though I have worked in an office and I've done that, I think the corporate world is its own kind of beast. And so just I am aware that it could be a challenge for the first couple of weeks, but I'm definitely excited for it more than anything.
Cool. Thanks, Charlie. That's very useful. And Sze-Von, is the life of a trainee as busy and hectic as we imagine it? How do you manage your workload and stuff?
I think answer is it depends on the day. So you can have. I think it changes very quickly. So you have to be very quick to adapt. I, for example, went into this morning thinking that I had one thing on my plate, and then you get a couple of rogue calls on Teams, and then suddenly that's blown up. But other days, sometimes you think it will be very busy, but actually, there are delays on the other side or with another party, so that ends up freeing up your day. So, I think just be prepared to be adaptable. And in terms of, did you say work-life?
Low work-life balance, yeah.
I think one thing that I've been working on that I found really helpful has been keeping lines of communication with the people that you're working with and your supervisors really open, because they'll often be the best people to be able to help you see where things might fall on that priority list. And also it means that if you are at capacity or if you're nearing that, there'll be other people who can support you with that as well. I think a personal thing that I found really has helped for me to maintain balance between my work life and personal life is just really knowing yourself and what you're willing to sort of sacrifice on some days and some days what is really necessary. So I, for example, devote my morning times before work to exercise, like the little hobbies that I like, so that during the day I know that I've had that little bit of time for me. And if work goes into the evening, my firm is really lovely about that, but sometimes it's necessary. If that happens, you know that you've had that time to yourself, and I think other people like to manage it a different way. So yeah, happy to talk about that on like a personal basis, but that's what I found has really helped for me.
Thank you for the answer, for the advice. And okay, and moving on to talk about a bit more exciting stuff about working at a law firm. Cheryl, what's the biggest opportunity you've been given since becoming a trainee?
So for context, I've been in my seat for about 3 months now, just about 3 months. And I'd say one of the most exciting things I've been able to do, on top of the normal day-to-day trainee tasks, is attend a witness interview and also conduct a portion of it. So I think a really typical trainee task is to sit in on client calls or sit in on a witness interview, take a note, because that's really integral to the whole case management process. However, being able to take control in that way and be able to ask questions to the client directly during this interview, being so early on in my training contract, has been really exciting opportunity for me, and it just shows the amount of trust and the amount of dedication that the team has to fostering and developing these skills in trainees really early on. So I've been really grateful for that, and I would say that's one of the main highlights, yeah. Apart from my team, which has also been great.
Perfect, thank you. And Karl, you mentioned your secondment. Can you tell me more about that experience and what that's been like?
Yeah, no, the secondment experience has been great. I think
like I said before, when you're on secondment, you're given a lot of responsibility really early. I think the biggest thing I've enjoyed about the secondment is just learning what it's like to be in the business rather than an external advisor, because I think once you're inside the business, it requires a different skill set. It requires you to be able to digest information that you're getting from non-legally trained stakeholders, and then taking that and understanding, or looking at it, I should say, from a legal point of view, and then giving a view on where you think or what the associated risks are of that thing they're looking to undertake, which I think is something you don't often get to do from your law firm, simply because you're really only asked for your legal opinion rather than the commercial opinion. So I really enjoy this comment. Definitely think if whichever firm you end up with, if you have an opportunity to do a client's comment, definitely recommend doing it.
Thank you. And Sze-Von, correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned that you've just done a secondment?
Yes, so I have just come from a secondment as of this week. Yes, my pretty much everyone at my firm, Bristows, does end up on a client secondment. It's something that's very popular and something that I'd urge everyone to try and take up the opportunity on if you get the chance. I'd echo everything that was just said. You see a different kind of side to giving legal advice in that it is a lot more risk focused. You're speaking with product teams usually, or non-legal teams in the business who may have a legal question at the very beginning of a concept of something, or maybe a little bit too far down the line, and it's up to you to collate all that information into what you need to give them the best advice possible. And I think on my secondment, we actually ended up instructing my firm on something as well. So it was quite nice to be on the other side, seeing all the business conversations in the lead up to that instruction, and where the expertise of outside counsel in a law firm can really be beneficial as well. So yeah, really, really rewarding. Had a great experience.
Great to hear, and thank you for sharing. And I think, speaking of opportunities, I think it's also important to briefly touch on pro bono as well. So Charlie, what opportunities, pro bono opportunities, would you say there are to you as a student at the University of Law?
Yeah, at the university, we kind of have a lot. The main bulk of it is our pro bono clinics. And so basically how the system works is we work with solicitors from different law firms, and they're doing their pro bono work, but they do it with us, and when they're giving their advice to clients, and that can range from like small businesses to family matters, kind of the whole spectrum of law. When they're giving their advice, we get to sit in and listen to the advice and see how it kind of really goes on as a student. And then also you can go further and you can get involved by writing attendance notes, and they'll be reviewed by the solicitor. So it's kind of a really early way to get involved with kind of the type of work that you may be doing when you come to be a trainee and then associate and partner. And then you can also get involved in other ways with external organizations like Amnesty International. You can shadow different justices. You can do a whole bunch of things. One of the projects that I was involved in is going out to high schools and advising them on consent laws. And so different things like that. There's a whole heap to get involved in from day one, which I think is really important.
Great, thank you. And moving on to talk about another interesting part, and sort of a part you're here for, the application and qualification process. Cheryl, can I start with you? Can you tell us how the qualification process works at your firm, and sort of what was your journey to getting a training contract?
Sure. I'll deal with the first part first. I'm sure there's quite a significant overlap between what I'm about to say and the qualification process in other firms as well, but generally, around your third seat is when the trainees, so in their second year of their training contract, will sort of be thinking about qualification and which seat you want to end up in. So what happens then is conversations between our graduate recruitment team and also the partners in the firm to figure out where there actually is business demand, whether there's space, if there is space, how many spaces there are available for an NQ in a particular department. These conversations will then be fed back to the trainees, and we will have a discussion just to make sure that everyone's interests and also business needs are aligned. So in the off chance that there are multiple people vying for a single seat in a single department, there might be interviews, but in general, recruitment takes place with the aim and with the expectation that all trainees will be kept on as newly qualified at the end of the training contract. So, yeah. And in terms of my application process, I think mine was, so basically for Cooley, majority of the application process takes place through the vacation schemes. I've also attended an open day that Cooley hosts called Meet Cooley, and this is not a necessary prerequisite to actually getting onto the vacation scheme. So I attended Meet Cooley, I also attended the vacation scheme, and then I was offered the training contract. In terms of the application cycle, I think I potentially echo everyone else when I say it was nightmarish at times, a very difficult process, but clearly we all made it. And I think that a lot of the time, it comes down to honing the skills of producing a good application. I think it's important to keep in mind that the application form is only as good as your skill in completing it. It doesn't necessarily represent how good you are or your potential as a future trainee. So I think a lot of it's just through practice, getting those numbers of applications out and getting familiar with the whole process of crafting a good application that tells a good story that's unique to you. I think that's what it ultimately came down to.
Great, thank you very much, Cheryl, for the detailed answer. And Lucy, would you say the process at your firm is like quite similar? And what would you say your journey was to the training contract?
Yeah, so because we don't have seats, the process of qualification would be a bit different than a firm that does have seats. So because we don't have seats and we do checklists, so you pick 3 different areas where you do a checklist of a certain amount of hours and sort of skills you have to tick off in that area. So for instance, I'm doing a real estate checklist, a disputes checklist, so a litigation checklist, and a corporate checklist. And all the departments have checklists, and it means that you then gain experience over all sort of, like, you don't just have to do 3 areas, you can do as many areas as you want. But you sort of have to do 3 by the end of your training contract. And then sort of what's quite different as well is a lot of my years sort of have done their checklist now, and people are thinking sort of, like, a lot of my years sort of are starting to just work in the areas where they're thinking they're going to qualify. So it does give you sort of more autonomy to then, you could almost have a year's worth of experience in that department when you qualify as an NQ, which means that you've sort of spent so much time and you could develop so many more skills, and you can have a really close relationship with that team by the time you qualify. And it's just like a conversation where you have conversations with grad recruitment and the partners and the associates you're working with, and then they'll sort of work out where the needs. But I think it's quite similar, where their aim is to keep everybody on and they want to keep you, and that's sort of very obvious from the start of the training contract. I think, was in my application, the application
Sort of your journey to get a training contract.
So I applied sort of through uni unsuccessfully. And then when I was doing my LPC, I kept applying again, and I found that the process of Jones Day was very personal, because it's a cover letter, now an assessment centre, and then which is also kind of chats with partners, team kind of group exercises, and trying to get you really trying to get to know you on a personal level rather than sort of those psychometric tests and all that kind of stuff. And so I found the interview very personal. It's you and 2 partners or a senior associate. It's very, very conversational. They really want to get to know you as a person, and the whole application process is really trying to get to know the person behind sort of the application. But I think, again, as Cheryl was saying, it is all about honing those skills on sort of utilising every single word in the application to sort of show that you have the skills of the place you're applying to, and using examples of previous experiences. But I think they're definitely trying to get to know you as a person rather than and seeing if you're fit within the culture of the firm that you're applying to.
Thank you very much, Lucy. And speaking of qualification, as many of you might already know, to become a solicitor in England and Wales, you need to pass the solicitor's qualifying exam, or the SQE. So Charlie, can you sort of outline, the cost of taking the SQE, including preparation and assessments, and then how can students plan for that financially?
Yeah, so I've got the scary one to answer. SQE prep, you unfortunately are looking anywhere in the range from like £12,000 if you're taking the 2 prep courses separately, to anywhere up to like £20,000 if you're taking the full LLM. And that's not including the SRA exams, which are another £5,000 on top of it. So it is a very big investment, both emotionally and just monetarily. But there are kind of a lot of options. So universities like ULaw, we offer scholarships and different things like that you can apply to. There are also online and part-time options to allow for flexibility to work alongside it. Also, I know a lot of people that take time off in between undergrad and qualifying in order to work to gain the financial means to qualify. Also, if you are taking the full LLM, that's eligible for government funding if you haven't already taken it, so that's another option. And then ultimately, a lot of people, if you are lucky enough in the application process, gain firm sponsorship, and so that would be paid for by the firm. So there are a lot of options out there, but it is ultimately quite the commitment to make.
Yeah, agreed. And one of the most common questions we get at LCN, and I'm sure trainees and recruiters do too, is how many law firms should one apply to? So Karl, to help our audience a bit, can you tell us how you chose which firm to apply to, and do you have any advice for sort of like shortlisting the firm list?
Yeah, similar to, I'm sure, a few different trainees, but I went through a couple application rounds. The first round, I don't think I had a large enough list and didn't work out. Second round, I think I had too big of a list. And third round, I think I did get it just right. And I think what really stood out to me as the biggest, I guess, mindset shift that helped me narrow down my short list was the first, or I should say the second, when I had too big of a list. What that ended up doing was created way too many deadlines for me to work with, and then the application suffered because of that. So I think as much as it might sound like, let me get as many applications out as possible, you just don't want that to come at the cost of the applications themselves. So the third time around, I really looked at, okay, well, what is the type of law that I'm currently interested in? And as a trainee, I think it's important to be curious, but I had this as my starting point, and then I looked at the firms that practice that type of law, and then I made a list, and I think my list came down to 9 firms, and I said, okay, of these 9 firms, what are my top choices, RBC being one of them. And then I really honed in on those top, I think, 4 applications. And those applications were much better when I look back at those applications versus the ones I did the application round before. I think they were much better applications, and noticeably even from my perspective. So I think for me, it was a process of broadening the list and then realizing, okay, well, these aren't at the level that I think they need to be to get the result I want. Now I need to hone in based on my current interests and then really focus in on applications dedicated to specific firms rather than a broader plug-and-play list of a kind of application.
Perfect, thank you, Karl. And your answer about the practice areas and sort of like have it showing you're interested in knowing sort of what practice area department you're interested in, kind of nicely leads me on to the next question, which is Justin, as a candidate, how do you kind of like know or decide which practice areas appeal to you?
So I think when going in, I assume this is alluding to seat choices. Yeah, I think it's quite person dependent. I very much went in quite an open mind. I didn't really have there wasn't really an area or like even just a simple corporate litigation disputes. I didn't really know where I wanted to end up. So I was fortunate that I had 2 or 3 trainees that were, before I started, that was able to give me a steer as to sort of what they sort of saw, or like was universally in the firm at least, is sort of good first development seats that sort of allowed you just to have do a lot of broad bit of work and exercise a lot of different skills and just develop them. I think it helped a lot because our firm, and I assume a lot of firms do this as well, before you start, they sort of host different sort of taster sessions when you were a future trainee, and sort of an associate or an MA would like come in and sort of give you a presentation and just have a flavour of what sort of that department could bring. So that helps a lot. But I think it's a good thing to keep an open mind. I know that I have friends who have sort of gone, oh, I really like corporate law, going into it and hated it, and suddenly went into litigation work and loved it completely, like, I don't know, like property litigation, something completely different. And just, I think being able to sort of be adaptable and also keep an open mind that your mind might change, an impression might be completely different, because a team, it also depends on the people you work with. So it's a balance that you just learn as you get exposed to the job.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. And while we're on the topic, of commonly asked questions, something every candidate wonders is, what sort of experience are law firms looking for? So, Karl, would you say that you need legal experience to succeed, or is non-legal experience also just as valuable?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I had spoken with a couple people out there about this. I'm actually a career changer, so I originally had a career in marketing and advertising before pursuing law. When I decided to make the switch, I went back to uni, I did my law degree, and then that was the beginning of my journey. But I think what I think helped me stand out in my applications was I really focused on the fact that I had 4 years of experience in marketing and advertising, and those gave me a lot of professional qualities that I think a lot of candidates just coming out of uni might not have had, because I had this previous experience. And that was just me likening my marketing and advertising experience to what I might have found useful in the practice of law. I think everyone who has some sort of previous experience, whether that's retail, customer service, etc., will be able to say, well, this is what I did in this previous job. This is where I think that applies in the legal space. And really honing in on the fact that it is a transferable skill, I think will be really helpful for applications.
Thank you, definitely agree. And Sze-Von, you also career changed yourself, so would you share the same sentiment?
Yes, 100%. I think, so I came from a background where I had both project management and some copywriting experience as well. And those have been really useful in my training contract. And I think what you can do is just really hone in on your unique selling points, or that experience which makes you unique and valuable. At my firm, I think probably half to 2/3 of people there didn't do a law undergraduate degree. Quite a few came from STEM backgrounds, quite a few came from the arts, humanities, and there are law graduates as well, and every person has something to offer. So think about your unique experience and how that lends itself to what you want to do.
Perfect, thank you. And then, of course, with applications come the inevitable rejections, and that we hate to see coming. But Cheryl, would you say you faced certain rejections and setbacks, and how did you handle them?
100%. I definitely faced a lot of setbacks and rejections during the application process. I think everyone does, and the degree to which everyone faces it is slightly different. Just want to caveat that I was in a position where I was at a university where I had resources and career support services. So even with that in mind, I did find it very difficult. For context, I come from a background where I don't have any lawyers in my family. And I also, I was an international student coming in, so I didn't have anyone in my family or anyone in my immediate friendship group who sort of knew what to do in terms of navigating the UK education space in general, let alone going to university. So I found myself in a position coming into university in my first year. Suddenly it's like September, and a bunch of people are like, I'm going to this Insight Day, I'm going to that Insight Day. And I'm like, what is this? What's going on? I have no clue what's going on. And then come second year, it's the whole vacation scheme, application cycle. So I always felt like I was lagging behind my peers in that regard. However, I think what happened was after an unsuccessful first round of applications in my second year, I sort of kind of did what you did as well, where I did a regroup. I figured out what I did wrong in my first cycle, went through my applications, figured out what actually wasn't sounding very authentic and what I just wrote because I thought that was what graduate recruitment wanted to see. I think my main takeaway from that, sort of two takeaways of how to handle setbacks and rejection. I'm going to address the more technical side of things first. I think specifically to do with applications, what I found I kept doing wrong was trying to write in a way to present myself in the shape of what I thought the ideal trainee would look like. But the problem with that was I did not know what an ideal trainee would look like in my second year of university, nor did I know what that looked like in my final year of university. So I think writing from a place that's authentic to you and is really digging deep into figuring out why you really want this position, not because of job security or not because it's what your peers are doing, but really honing in on the core interest that's driving you and the motivating factor that's driving you to want a training contract in this specific firm. I think doing a lot of introspection in that regard really helps you draft a more compelling application. The second thing, more of the emotional side of things, is echoing what I said earlier about really separating the idea of a good application versus a good trainee. Rejection means that your application wasn't great. It just means that you didn't fill in the form very well. It doesn't mean that you're not capable, or it doesn't mean that this is the wrong career for you. I think what really helped me as well was being able to speak to a lot of people, so not just my peers, but also people I knew in the year above at university who've been through the application cycle, people who I know are really bright, really brilliant, people who I've seen perform at their best, and they're struggling with the application cycle. Like just seeing people that you look up to also struggling, and from there, how they've sort of changed tact to reapply again successfully, or how they've decided, actually, this is not even what I want, and that's why it's so difficult to craft a good application, because I really genuinely am not interested. I'm actually interested in legal tech, or I'm interested in working for the civil service. So I think a lot of that is introspection, and also speaking to other people, gaining more perspective outside the, unfortunately, your application was not successful email. Sort of branching out from there, I think that is what really helped me get through the setbacks and the rejections throughout the application cycle. Yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl. That's very useful advice. And Charlie, how does the University of Law, support students in securing training contracts? And what would you say the most useful resources you found?
Yeah, so we have a great employability team, and you have access to that from day one, and then also as a graduate. So that's quite useful if you haven't secured it during your time at the university. And that kind of ranges from everything from CV reviews to like application reviews to skills workshops. So if there's a skill that you want to improve on, that is also a great option, especially with commercial awareness being thrown around as a term. You might even not know what it is, so they run workshops on that. And they also run a lot of like partnership events, like we're at events like this. And they also run a lot of panels, so it's a great time to like network and meet people, and you'll gain little tidbits of insight that you wouldn't get on a website, that you wouldn't get by any other means. I think for me, the most useful thing has been the panels, just even knowing I'm going into commercial law and with a training contract, hearing from like in-house lawyers just adds a different perspective, like you mentioned. And so even hearing that is really helpful. And then also getting involved with the pro bono clinics early on to get that experience is really helpful.
Perfect, thank you, Charlie. And moving on to offer like even more advice to our attendees today. Justin, what's one thing you would do at university again, and one thing you would do differently?
I think that's quite a hard question to answer, really. I personally think that looking back, probably I was happy. I'd do again, probably is do my degree fairly well and got a 2-1. I think a 2-1 is probably, it sounds quite simple, but my belief of applications and all of that, I think there's quite a lot of, it's quite hard to differentiate yourself on paper until you're in front of an interviewer. So I firmly think that there's probably 50 me's on paper when I was applying. Don't give an excuse to the recruiter if they just see a 2-2 or something lower, that they're not going to read your substance behind it. That might give an impression to them, oh, that they're out then. Just try and make your life easier, that do the basics correct, and then put yourself in the best, sort of more opportunity or best shoes to sort of apply or sort of have a nice application to show. I think do again is probably go to more events like these. I think you guys are already doing a lot more than what I did. You're listening to people talking about their life. I think it gives you something a lot more tangible to write about in an application. You can sort of relate it more better. Especially if you go to open days, you can actually, if you chat to someone, you can, in your application, make it more personable. So you did have a conversation, or someone, you listened to this talk, you had a chat with them, they really sort of, why did that conversation made it interesting, made it want you to apply to the firm? That's probably something that makes it stand out a bit more. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Justin. And finally, starting to think, about the future and what future trainees in the audience can expect. Justin, sticking with you, can you tell us about how the skills, you need to be a successful trainee will change, or they're changing already?
Sure. I think you have your usual legal research, drafting, all of those you need to hone down, and you'll develop as you progress as a trainee. But I think it's helpful just having some sort of digital savviness, or like some sort of tech competence is what I like to say. I think it surprises me sometimes that even just knowing how to make an Excel sheet and doing a formula
seem to partners like they're completely blown away by it, or like making a nice structure chart, like this group structure. They're like, wow, these, like, what shapes are these? So it's just small things sometimes that I personally think, oh, makes their life easier. I think that life as a trainee, your role is to make the team's runs better, and sort of you're there to make their life easier. I think, I'm not sure whether you'll ask it further, but I'll just touch a bit on AI. Obviously is a big one, and that will be something that everyone talks about, and it'll probably come up in any assessment centers or probably application questions. And I think about sort of AI is important, and I don't think it will be a fear of, oh, it'll take over all of our jobs, but it will change our skill set. I think a lot of law firms probably here, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, probably has some sort of AI system they have integrated into their internet or whatever system they're using. And the skill changes from knowing what bits of AI you can use to make your work stream more efficient, but also being aware that that system isn't 100% reliant, and you need to be able to pick out things or know the hotspots that sometimes, or the red flags that an AI might just come up and make something up. And that skill changes from producing the work into reviewing the work. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And Sze-Von, I was wondering if you had anything to add. I know your secondment, I think you mentioned, was quite AI related.
Yes, so I was seconded to a client that is a very big developer of AI products, and was using and talking about AI development every single day. So completely echo what you say. I think it is already, at least in my firm, integrated into some of our work streams. A lot of the kind of tasks which can be automated are being done so, and very much agree with it, meaning that we're now working to develop more of our review abilities in response to that. So, you can use AI for breaking down a lot of like complex information very, very quickly, but then it's up to you to fact check that and draw inferences from that and kind of find the patterns and build that into something that is useful for your clients. So, yeah, very much see it as a positive. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And if we could please switch to the questions from the delegates. We haven't got much time, but we can hopefully cover a couple. Let me see if I can read them. I'm going to have to stand up, sorry. Well, top question is, what was the moment you realized this was the right firm for you to stay at, and what draws you to a specific area of law? Is anyone happy to cover that one?
Yeah, I can do that if you guys are happy.
I can cover that.
Yeah.
So my firm Bristows is very heavily tech life sciences focused, and when I project managed, I was in the tech sector. It was something that I knew I wanted to be involved in, so I was attracted to the firm for that reason. And then all the wonderful things I said in my application form came to light when I joined the firm. Just really, really lovely culture, people. I think a really good indication is when you feel like you can be yourself at that firm, which may take a while, especially, firstly, I was so anxious. I think I offered to take a partner's dry cleaning for them one time, because that's what I thought we did as trainees, and then quickly realized, actually, it's not the 90s, you can calm down. But yeah, I think it's after that initial period, I think when you feel like you can bring your whole self, then you realize it's a place that, like, it's a good place to work in.
Perfect, thank you. And I see there's one asking all the trainees, what's the unique selling point of your firm? And I did have a nice closer question asking, if you could describe your training experience in one word, what would that be? So if you could, or maybe close off with, one word for your training experience and the unique selling point of your firm. Can we start with you, please?
Oh, okay. I'm going to steal one of my firm's values, which is curious. And I think I say that because when you do the training contract, you are just learning so much. You're asking so many questions, and you're a beginner each time. My firm also does a mixture of 3 and 6 month seats. So there have been times, including this week, because I'm in a new seat, where every 3 months you're just starting over from scratch, brand new beginning. So you have to stay curious about all the things that you're learning about, but then also, I think introspectively, you just learn a lot about yourself and what you like and what's important to you, and that's really, really valuable as well. So I guess I'll use that word to sum it up.
Thank you. And Lucy, one word to describe your experience and maybe your firm's unique selling point.
Yeah, sure. It might be quite a boring word, but I think it's so varied that, because I think that going to linking that to the kind of USP would be, as I said before, the non-rotational training contract. So every day is so different. You're working on different things at any one time, and it means that from day one you're walking. We call it walking the floors, where you go and get work from, and it means that you meet so many more people all around the firm than you would if you start in a seat. So it means that you know so many more people you see in the corridor, and I think varied or sort of just friendly, which as kind of, I don't know, I grew up in the countryside, I didn't really know anything about the city when I was younger, and I just had this idea of American law firm being literally the most terrifying place on the planet. And I think the unique selling point and the non-rotational system means that everyone is so approachable, so friendly, and so I really do enjoy working there, and I recommend anyone else to do the same.
Thank you. And Justin?
Sure. My word is completely separate to my firm, by the way, so I think my experience so far, I'd say, is peaks and troughs. I have good moments and bad moments, and that's just part of the job. I think when you learn whether it's for you. I think you learn, sometimes you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, and people have tolerance for that. Like, you're there, you're a trainee, you're not a finished product, you're there, you can make mistakes, just don't make the same mistake twice, and that will be fine. I think firm-wise, like, it would sound very cliche, like, we are lovely people, everyone has good culture, and in order for you, like, for me, that culture suits me perfectly, and the small trainee cohort of 12 of us in each cohort really works, but that might not work for you, and my advice is just, I think, do meet the people of the firm, go to an open day. A VAC scheme is always very useful, but I know that's very competitive, but try and, because on paper, every firm says they have a great culture, and you wouldn't know that until you meet the people and actually get the experience, whether it gels or not. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it's not you, it's a compromise of whether the culture of the firm works for you and whether you fit in the culture, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but yeah.
Perfect, thank you, Justin. And Karl and Cheryl, just quite briefly, please, as we're out of time.
Yeah, no, my word is definitely real. I mean, RPC's slogan is strikingly real, and with my VAC scheme and then my time with the firm now, I've been with 4 teams, and I haven't had to really, I think, adjust myself to fit. Everyone has been lovely, so definitely very much believe the firm lives the values of strikingly real.
Thank you. Cheryl?
I'm glad you asked me to keep it short. I'll keep it really pithy. USP-wise, I think the work that we do is of high quality, and it's exactly the intersection between law and also cutting-edge innovation. If you're interested in the clients that we work with, you'll be really interested in the work that we do. And obviously, like everyone says, our firm is great. Every firm has great people. We might be your kind of friendly, and if that's the case, then it'll be a great fit for you. In terms of the training contract, single word is growth. It's only been 3 months. I think retrospectively, looking back at what I was doing on my first day, I'm quite surprised by how much I've been able to learn, how much I've been able to grow in terms of the tasks that I'm expected to do and the responsibilities that I've been given. So that's my word, that's my spiel. Not sure if Charlie's, no, that's it? Okay.
One word
for
as
you,
a
law.
future trainee.
Yeah. I was going to say, I guess supported by both you law and my firm, I guess, through a very challenging year, I think would be the kind of overarching thing that I can say about it. And I guess from my firm, we're very innovative, I think is the key thing. So yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And yeah, that's all we got time for today. Thank you very much, guys.